No matter what they call it, no matter what they want it.
We've been focusing a lot on the broader picture, but I thought tonight we would kind of narrow it down a little and look at North Carolina, where we're from, and our numbers. And I think North Carolina is kind of representative of a lot of states that are kind of seeing cases, but it's not a hotspot deal, and a lot of people are getting frustrated with the lockdowns and kind of questioning some of the data. So I pulled up I want to compare where we're at with COVID versus where we're at with the flu season. Because going into this, you had a lot of people saying, oh, this will be the same as the flu. It won't, it's not going to be any worse than that. And so I was curious, now that we're a little ways into this, kind of comparing the two. So what I pulled up first was, this is all the positive cases for influenza for the 1920 season, our current season. It kicks off in about beginning of October, ends about mid-May. And you see this nice bell curve that we usually get with the cases going up. And then if you look at it, this is the same time period, but this is associated deaths with the flu. This is influenza deaths. And when you look at it again, it's going to match that same bell curve. But what you see is that, and this is weekly. So our peak was about 19 deaths in a week. We averaged about 10 and a half deaths per week, flu related. So let's take that and let's compare that to COVID and kind of get a comparison of the two and see where we're at. So here you're going to see your influenza or flu death numbers by week. You see that little bell curve kind of died down, then going into February it picked up. Right here, the week ending March 28th was the first week we reported COVID deaths in North Carolina. And the orange is your COVID deaths. And you can see how quickly this spiked and absolutely dwarfed the flu deaths. Your blue line is your cases, orange line is your deaths. This is the trend for North Carolina as of today at 11 o'clock. We had roughly 6,500 cases and 172 deaths. So we just eclipsed the entire number of deaths for a almost 5.5 month flu season in basically 4 weeks. And as you can see in North Carolina, we're still seeing this steady growth. There's been no flattening of that curve. And what's interesting is, now that we've been in this a couple of weeks, we can start looking at data on a weekly level rather than a daily, which helps kind of filter and mute some of the fluctuations that you get. And so this is the North Carolina increase in deaths by week. It's a log chart, so any straight line is exponential growth. And you can see week 1 to week 2, and then we kind of found our trend. But basically we've got a straight line, so we're seeing exponential growth, and it's slow, but it's still exponential growth. And you can see that the trend is just climbing, and we're blowing away the influenza numbers, and we've passed the number. So I know people are getting tired 2 to 3 weeks into the lockdowns and whatnot. But there are a lot of states where we're still sort of at that cluster, haven't really hit the boom stage yet. And, we need to be cautious. And those that said this was going to be equal to the flu, I think they really need to relook at things a little bit, because we're now have more deaths to COVID than flu for the entire flu season.
So basically, I know when this whole thing was coming out, when COVID-19 was just kind of getting started, when everyone was kind of tossing their main theories out and what they thought was going to happen, the big thing is everyone kept comparing this to the common cold. Rush Limbaugh said the same thing, like, why are we killing the country for a cold? A lot of people said that this is going to be no worse than the flu. We don't lock the country down for the flu. But, this is hard proof. This is actual evidence that so far, in North Carolina at least, the pandemic is already worse than the flu, and we're just kind of getting started into COVID-19 here, and we're still at less than 1,000 deaths, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you figure if we follow trends of the other states that start having hotspots and outbreaks like have been happening here, we're probably going to see that number climbing to the tens of thousands relatively quickly, sadly. And I mean, obviously, I want to avoid that, but I do know, which we could talk about this tonight, is they've opened up our beaches here.
Yeah.
Surf City, Ocean Isle, Emerald Isle, those were locked down, and then Florida over the weekend opened up their beaches to the public. So I guess North Carolina said, well, Florida's doing it, we could do it, right?
Yeah, Georgia did the same thing.
So I mean, the way that they're operating the beaches in North Carolina is you're not allowed to sunbathe. You can only go out for 2 to 3 hours in intervals, like it's like 5 to 8 in the morning, and then 7 to 9 at night, or 6 to 9 at night, or something like that. And you can only go for surfing, fishing, and running, right? But that's still stupid because I mean, all these people, it's just like mobs of people going to the damn beach right now. If you look at pictures of it, like in Surf City, there's just like
Yeah.
thousands of people on the beach. There was no semblance of social distancing being, enacted. There was, I mean, it's good for a freedom standpoint, but it's dumb from a viral outbreak pandemic or a containment standpoint.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the demonstrations that you're seeing, like the demonstrations in Michigan, Wisconsin, where all these people are going out and they're protesting against the lockdowns and everything, which I completely support protesting those. But you see these pictures, not a single person's wearing a mask. Everybody's piled in. Nobody's 6 feet apart. And all that does is it just reemphasizes the reason why state governments are having to do the lockdowns, because the argument is that the people are too stupid to do it the right thing themselves. We have to do it for you. So what do? We go out there and we protest, which may be a good thing. The idea is good, but the execution's horrible, because all we're doing is making the case that we're slow adjusters, we're ignorant, we don't understand the risk, and we can't follow common everyday pandemic guidelines and protocols. I'm all for protesting because I think there's been some really poor rules with some of the lockdowns, and the reasoning is dumb with some, where some things are essential, some aren't. So I mean, I think social protests are good, but we should be smart enough to do them in an appropriate way. You can still make your point, but show that you're intelligent enough to know you don't need the government to be your nanny. We can do this and handle it ourselves.